What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. I've got my first theatrical release of the year, my first film review of the entire year of 2023. Welcome back to another year. Thank you guys all for those of you who have supported me for a long time on this channel. I greatly appreciate it. Here is the first of many hopefully good horror reviews in 2023. I went to the theater yesterday with two of my good friends to see this movie. I'm talking about the first big horror release of the year, M3GAN. Went to see M3GAN. And January is generally known as a pretty lackluster time for horror films. The first part of the year is kind of the lull for horror. It doesn't pick up until about March usually. But let's see how this one did. You guys have seen the previews by now. Some have loved the whole killer doll subgenre. Some have thought the stuff looked a little cheesy. We will talk about it. This film is written by Akila Cooper, who is also known for writing Hellfest, which I love, and Malignant, which I thought was okay. Also co-written by James Wan. You guys know James Wan from The Nun, Dead Silence, Saw, Conjuring, Insidious, Annabelle, that whole universe that James Wan does. Directed by Gerard Johnstone, who had a big directing credit under Housebound. Housebound is kind of a part found footage, kind of part apparition, supernatural movie, which I wasn't really into. It had good moments, a few good jump scares, but wasn't really my kind of thing. But Gerard Johnstone directed this movie, so there was a lot of horror kind of lineage. The crew had a lot of horror background coming into this movie. This film was starring Allison Williams as Gemma. You guys would know her from The Invitation on Netflix and also from Get Out, Jordan Peele's movie. Also starring Violet McGraw as Katie, Amy Donald as M3GAN, the titular character in the movie, and Jenna Davis as the voice of M3GAN. So M3GAN had one voice actor who played the AI-style voice and one person playing the physical character in this movie. Essentially, the plot is a little girl has her parents pass away, so she's kind of by herself. She gets taken in by her aunt, and she doesn't really have anything left from the parents' car accident to really call home. She doesn't feel comfortable in her new situation. So her aunt gives her a new toy that she kind of bonds and becomes best friends with. That is M3GAN. And of course, once that happens, all kind of chaos ensues. Those things are all in the trailer, so there's no big spoilers. I will keep this spoiler free. It is a new movie that just came out, so I won't spoil anything here. But I will try and give you guys a thorough review in spite of that. This movie overall runs an hour and 42 minutes, and while maybe that is a little bit long for the subject material, it doesn't feel very long. I saw it in theaters, hour and 42 total, including credits. Pretty well paced. It wasn't bad for the pacing of it. Again, these movies are kind of basic. Anytime you do a killer doll with a child movie, you can go for anywhere between an hour and 25 and an hour and 30 and be fine. But the hour and 42, I don't feel like took too much negative away from the film. I didn't feel like the pacing was hurt by it. I didn't feel like it was a lag to get through. I thought the pacing was fairly fun, and I was okay with it. First big positive note I've got to say, and this goes hand in hand, casting/acting. I really enjoyed the casting of this movie. Allison Williams is an underrated actress. I enjoyed her in the two films that I listed for her above, and I think she plays a very good character here. The two main characters, in Allison Williams and Violet McGraw, both really get established pretty well. While James Wan kind of style stories don't usually focus on their characters, and that's my big negative takeaway from his work usually, he and co-writer Akila Cooper here did a nice job in establishing these two main characters in their world. You feel for Violet McGraw as she goes through a tremendous sense of loss, and you kind of hope that she can kind of find her way, but then you also see behavioral changes as she begins to bond with the doll, who may or may not have evil intentions. And I think overall Allison Williams is kind of one of those underrated scare queens, kind of one of the new horror staples lately. Again, The Invitation and Get Out, now this. She's kind of become an underrated scream queen for this modern generation. We look at some of the bigger names that have come out lately, and Samara Weaving and Jenna Ortega and Mia Goth. But Allison Williams has several good credits under her name, and I thought the acting and chemistry, especially from the leads here, was really good. You had the story built between the dynamic of the aunt, who's kind of the independent workaholic, and the young little girl who just lost people, who's quiet and kind of needs something to feel whole again. And so you get that dynamic of their family kind of being torn apart, and Allison Williams trying to get back together and find some connection in spite of her lifestyle with this young girl. And I like that aspect of it. I think that bit of the storytelling was the strongest and most original in the story. So casting and acting overall was a big positive here. No weak spots in the acting. Even the background characters had a few nice moments that made you chuckle. Another positive here I have is mindlessness. I mean this in a positive way. This is a kind of just a standard fun movie. You kind of know what you're going to get. You watch the trailer, right away you know what this is going to be. Killer doll goes rogue and chases after child, and you get the doll and child bond. Doll's going to go crazy and try and hurt people, right? You know that from the trailer. You know what this is going to be. But you have a good time getting there. It's a fairly fun movie. It's nothing special. It's nothing revolutionary. But you can just turn your brain off and watch it. You can watch it for the doll. You can watch it for the moments of comedy. You can watch it for some moments of tension. You can watch it for the bond between the two main characters. You can watch the doll kind of trying to intrude between the two main characters. And it's a fun, basic watch. You're not going to have to pay super close attention. You're not going to have to shut down the world around you to watch this movie. You can turn your mind off and you can just enjoy a horror movie. And sometimes that's a missing art nowadays with companies trying to do elevated horror. So that's a positive. The use of technology in this film. If you're going to do an updated killer doll movie, you want to do something that involves technology. That's where kids' minds are these days. Everything's involving apps and Siri and all these smart TVs and smart watches and smart computers. With all the technology we have nowadays, that is the fastest and smartest way to be relatable to a new audience and to update your killer doll construct. And they did that here. The use of technology was nice. You had some visual computer aids on the screen. You had some technological talk about how to build the dolls and stuff like that. You had use of remote controls. You had some screen visual aids popping up in different places. This gave it a feel of being technological while not burying itself in the weeds. A lot of times the negative things that happen with technological films, like the newer films these days, are either number one, they try and get too fancy and the graphics look cheesy, or number two, the characters get caught up in too much scientific talk trying to prove how scientific they are, and you lose your core audience. Your basic audience doesn't care about the science behind a lot of the technology, because the technology is only a device to get this thing into the world. So they didn't lose you on the talk here, and the technological graphics they used looked really sharp and cool and didn't lose the audience. So that's a positive for me as well. Most of the rest of the things here are negatives. I will say the CGI is a positive / negative for me. I thought when they used the CGI in terms of the technology, again, the screen graphics and stuff like that, and the vision we see from the M3GAN character, I think is really cool. I think it's well done. I think it looks sharp, and I think it gives the film a bit of a differentiation from previous films. That being said, when they use the CGI for things like fires or any kind of blood or any kind of M3GAN's visage, when they use the CGI surrounding M3GAN, whether it be the inside or the outside of M3GAN's visual presentation, I don't like that. There's times the CGI looks a little bit cheesy to me, and that's kind of an issue for me. So the CGI is both positive and negative. It's positive when it's not surrounding the characters, and it's negative when it does surround the characters for me. I will say also the tone is a little bit weird because you find yourself kind of, it's meant to be a horror comedy, I guess, because the situation's a bit outlandish, but you really find yourself, I think we were laughing a little bit too much. There should be some moments that should be a little tense, and you find yourself laughing because the doll or one of the background characters is doing something silly, but it also looks a little bit silly. You got to be sure to keep the comedy into certain characters or certain situations and make the situation comical, but make the character serious about it. That's where horror comedies thrive, in my opinion, and they miss the boat sometimes on that, where sometimes stuff should be a little tense or a little weird, and you're laughing because either something on screen looks dumb or one of the characters it looks a little silly doing what they're doing. So I think the tone was a little bit off here. It doesn't miss entirely, but it misses a little too much for me. One of the biggest negatives, well, I guess two of these go hand in hand, but one note that I had was derivative. Very, very derivative. Again, if you've seen Child's Play, you know what this is going to be. And if you've seen the new Child's Play, the 2019, I think it was, remake, it's kind of the same exact thing. It's technological doll gone wrong. You know, it harkens back to the 80s, the cyborg movies like Chopping Mall and stuff like that. We've seen this over and over and over again. And whether you want to go the killer doll route, like a Stuart Gordon's Dolls, or Puppet Master with the puppets, or you want to look into Chopping Mall for the AI, or you want to look at Chucky, we've seen all of these tropes done a million times before, way before, and done better. And I don't think the technological advancements updated this movie enough to separate it from anything else. So I think it's a very unoriginal concept. And while it's not done poorly, I don't think it carves its own niche at all. If you're going to do a subgenre as popular as currently AI or previously dolls, you're going to meld those two together, you've got to separate yourself, and this doesn't get separated whatsoever, in my opinion. The other negative that goes along with that is predictable. Beat for beat, this story is exactly what you think it's going to be. And I was hoping for some kind of twist or something to really invest me, because while the characters did a nice job, especially the two main characters, I wasn't invested enough to really care about the outcome, because I kind of knew where it was going to go, and I predicted everything that was going to happen. So, again, this thing does not carve its own niche. It does not feel original whatsoever. I have tension written as a negative here. You would think when there's a killer doll running around in pretty well lit blue hues. They used a lot of blue in this movie. There was a lot of dark blue hues and stuff like that, a lot of dark house movement, a lot of outside light coming in from different angles. Decently lit place, decent location, nothing special but solid, but I didn't think the tension felt like it was there. You have moments where there are children or animals or things like that in peril, and you find yourself kind of just giggling or kind of just waiting for the jump out. And I will say that James Wan, one of his strengths, for as much as I don't love a lot of his work, is being able to write good tension. And I think that Gerard Johnstone, as a director, when he did Housebound, had a lot of good moments of tension, even though I didn't love that movie. But in this one, I didn't feel much tension. For the stakes that were so high for certain characters, and for how invested you're supposed to feel in the fates of some of your more innocent characters that are in peril, you don't really ever feel it. I didn't really jump much. There was one or two little jump scares because I'm a very, very jumpy guy in general, but I didn't really get invested in the jump scares of this. So this, for being a horror film, felt way more on the comedy side and didn't take itself seriously enough in general. And then for the jump scares, they really weren't scary. There was no real horror aspect of this movie, aside from the fact that AI can be evil and that's a realistic thing. I didn't feel invested in a tense way in this. So the tension, I think, missed for me in a big way here. Finally, I have gore. There was one particular moment with a foggy, well-lit scene outside that I really enjoyed. That was the best. The way it was shot in the background and the lighting and the fog and everything was really well shot. That was the best scene in the movie for me. And there was also a little bit of decent gore in those moments there. Aside from that, they cut away a lot. And I can understand with certain characters you don't want to show violence because you had things with, kids and animals and people of different ages. You don't want to show violence in certain situations. But I don't feel they showed enough gore. I think gore could have been something that could have made this stand out a little more, because it's just another technological, doll movie. They could have used gore as a way to go, hey, look, most of the previous doll films don't show a lot of gore. But nowadays, Chucky, Child's Play, is showing more and more gore. So you've got a standard to meet, and I don't think that it met it here. There could have been a couple of nice scenes that could have caused some carnage and stood out in a gore sense, and they didn't. So overall, again, this thing, it's in theaters now. It runs an hour and 42. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a fun, brainless, turn your brain off and just watch and maybe get a couple jump scares, maybe get a couple laughs. It's an easy movie to watch. I don't think it's one you have to own or take home. I don't think it's anything special. I don't think it's going to differentiate itself. I don't think it's going to stand out in 6 months, let alone by the end of the year for my end of year list. I don't think this is going to be anywhere near my top 10 or even top 15. Nothing special about it to me, but it was still a decent effort. It's an easy to follow movie with a couple of really good characters and a pretty well commissioned doll. So all in all, I'm going to give this one a 5.5 out of 10, just right around the average line. I could go as high as a 6 or as low as a 5. So I went 5.5 here, just above average for me. What did you guys think? If you guys have seen this movie, tell me in the comments down below. Let's talk about this new release. Tell me in the comments as well if there are anything on streaming right now or anything coming to theaters that I should be looking out for that I can review for you guys on this channel going forward. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like this video and you want more of these deep dive reviews in the horror section for 2023. I hope you guys all enjoyed your holiday and you're settling into the new year nicely, and I will see you guys soon. Take care.